Hey guys, hi everyone. Good morning. Good morning, Sumit. Good morning, Arka. Good morning, Vishwajit. Good morning, everyone. I hope I'm audible as well as visible. Am I audible? Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. How is everyone doing? Hello, guys. Hi, everyone. Perfect. I guess I am audible, right? Good morning, Adarsh. Good morning, Shipra. Good morning, Sumit. Good morning, Ankit. Govind, Basu. Good morning, everyone. So I can see people are joining, though only 20 students as of now. Walaikum salam, Sadi. Good morning, Pradnia. Good morning. So please put a message in the WhatsApp group asking your colleagues, WhatsApp mates to join as soon as they can in doubt group as well as in your main WhatsApp group. I am also doing very well, Ankit, and very excited for this session. Today's session is going to be one of the very important sessions related to JavaScript. I would say from now on, everything is going to be very important. So please make sure that you stay up till end. Don't leave in between because we are going to discuss a lot of important topics in today's class. I started today's session 5 minutes early because I thought when we start our session at 10, then people start joining after 5 to 6 minutes. That's why I started 5 minutes early. But unfortunately, I can see the same thing still. Only 19 people here, not more than that. Good morning, Shubham. Good morning. So where are rest of the students? 19 people. Let's wait few minutes. In the meantime, let me set up the environment. Good morning, Sukhjot. No, definitely not, Govind. Definitely not. We'll talk about that someday. You know how AI is affecting web development, whether it is or not, and if it is, how much it is. So we will discuss that. We will have a separate maybe discussion around that someday. Okay, and we'll try to understand this as well. Don't worry about it. Okay. So let us set up the environment. Meanwhile, rest of the people are going to join, and then we can start our session. Good morning, Hari Kishore. Good morning. Good morning, Smita. Good morning. So I hope my screen is visible. Is it visible, guys? I think it should be visible, right? It is visible. Perfect. Great. Good morning, Usman. Good morning. So let us try to start our session now. I can see people are joining. So there are 29 students who have joined as of now. So please ask the rest of the students to join as well. Put a message in your WhatsApp group as requested so that we can actually start our today's session. So we will wait 2 more minutes, not more than that, and then we are going to start. In the meantime, we have had done lot of good discussions in our previous few classes, right? And we have understood how JavaScript works under the hood. We have discussed a lot of topics, whether we talk about how JavaScript is executed, whether we have understood what synchronous single threaded means. We have also understood what hoisting is. You know, in today's class, we will try to understand a lot of other topics, a lot of very important topics. And let's start our discussion. Shall we? Shall we start, guys? Shall we start our session? I can see only two, three people typing yes. Please and please show your involvement by typing yes in the chat. Okay, perfect. Okay, let's. I guess we can start our session. First of all, we will start our today's discussion by understanding one of the very important topics inside our JavaScript and is also asked very much in the interviews called as scope. Now, I am pretty much sure that most of you, if you already have done JavaScript before in any of the classes, anywhere, you would already have a little bit idea of what we actually mean by scope, right? Let's try to understand what we actually mean by scope. Let's understand it over here. So if I create a file maybe over here, so let me try to create a simple file which is called scope over there .html, and inside this HTML file I'm going to create few of the variables over here and to try to understand what we actually mean by scope. So if I go here, let me try to create script, because I know that whenever we create our variables, JavaScript inside our HTML, we have to write that in a scripted tag. Let's suppose I will simply create var a is equals to 10. Now, someone might ask you, hey, please explain me what actually is the scope of A. Before we try to understand what scope of A is, in this case, that is defined with a variable, let's first of all try to understand what scope of anything actually means. Whenever we say scope, it automatically means one thing. Whenever you have any entity where you can access the entity, where does it die, that's what we mean by scope of anything, scope of a variable. For example, in this case, if I talk about var a, what are the different locations inside this program where you can access this variable? So if you can understand that, automatically we can conclude what the scope of var a is. You might have heard, guys, maybe you might have heard that whenever we talk about var keyword, the scope of var variable is nothing but global. But what exactly we mean by global, and do I agree with that? I do agree, but not entirely. Okay. And we need to understand what actually this global means, this global keyword. And later on, when we talk about block, when we talk about script functional, what actually those keywords mean. If you ask me, according to what I have understood, it might vary with different instructors, but what I have understood is scope entirely depends on where you have actually declared your variable. Okay, let's try to understand what one very important thing means. Whenever you actually create a website, in this case scope.html, and as soon as you go and open this inside your browser, so if I go live over here, you can clearly see in few seconds my website will be here, right? As soon as your web page opens up in a browser actually creates one of the objects around this web page called as window object. What? Window object. So if I simply go here and if I simply try to write console.log window, have I defined any identifier over here with the name of window? Of course not. I have not defined any such thing. But I told you that whenever you go open your web page in a browser creates, wraps a window object around it. So browser understands this particular web page as a window object. That's what window object actually means. Let's understand what we mean by window object in the output. So if I try to go inside the inspector, technically, if you ask me, it should throw an error because we have not defined any variable with the identifier window. But if I go inside the console, you can clearly see it actually gives me an object. And if I try to open this window over there, you can clearly see a variable is inside it. So a variable is inside this window. This is what we mean by global. So basically, whenever you define a variable with a var, the variable gets attached inside the window object of that browser. This is what we mean by global scope. It means if you try to access your variable over there, if I write window.a, it will automatically give me the output 10 because this variable is attached in the window that we have. This is what we mean by global. And we have also seen in our previous class that whenever we try to go over there and if I refresh the page, you can clearly see at this point of time inside my global scope, we actually have this variable, though it's undefined at this point of time because I have put a breakpoint. That's irrelevant over here, but A is stored in a space inside my window, which is called global. So this is what we mean by global scope. Variables are defined and stored in a global scope. Is it same when we try to put it over here inside a block? For example, this is what we mean by block of code. If I simply define a curly brace, close it a curly brace, it is a block. For example, in case of if else's, in case of for, in case of such entities where these curly braces are involved. What will happen if I define a variable b here? So variable b is equals to, let's suppose, 20. Now my question is this variable attached in a window object? Will this variable get attached to a window object that we can see in the browser? Let's try to figure out that. So if I simply go here console.log, I will say simply window.b. Window.b. B. And if I go in the output and try to, let me remove this breakpoint and refresh my page. If I go in the console, you can clearly see it is 20. Exactly. Browse when we try to open our web page inside our browser creates a window object around that particular web page. That's exactly what happens, Govind. Okay. So in this case as well, even when I wrapped my curly brace inside a variable that starts with where, it actually created this variable inside an object called as window. This is what we mean by global scope. So even though I have defined my variable in a block, so it is not actually concised and it is not like wrapped in a block, but actually it is still part of my global object called as window object. And you can clearly see it is still working there. If I simply go console.log my window here, and if I try to go in the output, you can clearly see as soon as I open it, A is 10, B is 10. So even though I have created a block scope there, even though I have created a block there, but unfortunately, not unfortunately, but fortunately, it is still part of my window. That's what we mean by global scope. It means if it is part of window, what does that actually mean? Like when you define any entity, and if that entity becomes part of window, what does that actually mean? That's what we need to understand. It means if it is part of window, it can be accessed anywhere in the program now. Whether you access it inside a block, whether you access inside a function, whether you access inside any nested function, it will be accessed anywhere. That's why also it's called a global scope, because it can be accessed anywhere. Yes or no? For example, let me give a simple understanding of it. If I simply go here, define a function name is add, and then if I simply go write console.log, let me say console.log b. Can I access it here? Of course I can. Because when we say console.log b, it will try to find it in memory. And don't you think it's in window memory? Yes, it is in window memory. And that is why if I call my add function here, and if I go in the output, you can clearly see it prints 20 here. So that's what we mean by window object. That's what we mean by global scope. I hope I am completely clear. Am I clear? Am I clear? Yes or no? Now, there's one another very important point that you have to understand. Few seconds back, I told you that actually it depends on where you define your variable. As of now, we have understood the variables that we define with where they are part of window object. They become, what is called global scope variables. But what will happen if I try to define my variable inside a function? That's where function scope comes into picture. Basically, you need to understand one very important point. Before ECMAScript 6, ECMAScript 6 version of JavaScript that was launched in 2015. Before then, we only had pure functions. We only had our var keyword. Whenever you define your variable, it will try to find its nearest function. Whenever you define a variable or function anywhere, it will try to find its nearest function and access its scope. What does that mean? Understand my words, what I'm trying to say. These are very important. I don't think you will have discussed scope in this level anywhere. Let me try to make you understand what I mean. The statement, let me repeat. Whenever you define a variable with a var keyword, I am talking about JavaScript before 2015. Whenever you used to define a variable var, whenever you define a function with normal functions, it will always and always try to access the scope, assign the scope, catch the scope that is its in nearest function. For example, if I simply go here, let us suppose in this function add, I will define a var x is equals to 88, and then I will define var t is equals to 99. You can clearly see the variable 2 that I have defined, they will actually try to catch the scope of its nearest function. Now, what is the nearest function? What is the nearest function? These two variables are related to, of course, in this case, they are related to add function. So they will actually try to access the scope of add. That's where local scope comes into picture. So we earlier had only two types of scope: global scope, local scope. Block scope was not there because we did not had let and constant at that point of time. Then we got let, constant, class keyword, all such keywords. So you need to understand whenever you define any variable, it will try to find its nearest function. And if there's no nearest function, it means it will go to window object. In this case, what is the nearest function for this var? There is no nearest function. So it will go to the window object. What is the nearest function to this var? There's no nearest function. It will go to window object. So what is the nearest function to this var x and t? Add. So it will go to add. So if I simply go here, if I try to check window at this point of time, you will not be able to see x or y over there. So if you go to x over here, there's no such key. But yes, if I go to my web application, if I try to put a breakpoint here, you can clearly see there's local scope now. Inside the local scope, we have t and x. This is what we mean by local scope. I hope this makes sense. Now, there's one another point that we need to understand here. So, over here, tell me one thing. Is now var part of global scope? Is var part of global scope now? Is var global? Tell me that. Is var global? Though we say var is global scoped, but in this case, is it global? No, it's not. It's local to that function. That's why I told you need to understand it depends on where you are actually creating your variable. There are two parts always. Variable accessing, variable declaration. So wherever you will declare your variable, it depends on that. Now, what other is the other meaning of window object? This one another very important point. What will happen if I simply go to script? I will define one another script. There's a huge possibility my web application will have lot of scripts. One script, another script depends on our programming. And let's suppose I will simply try to access console.log. So if I simply go write console.log a, do you think we will get our output? So if I say a is, and let me simply write comma and a, do you think I will get output over here? Like this is one script, this is another script. What do you think will be the output of this code? Come on, guys. What do you think will be the output of this code? In the another script, I have accessed A. So can I access A here? That's one of the very important points. One of the very important points. So you need to understand over here that when I will define another script, though inside my inspect, if I see the output is 10, it is going to be 10 because it will access it because A is part of my window. Now you need to understand one thing. It does not matter how many scripts we have. My JavaScript, my browser is going to execute them sequentially. My JavaScript is going to execute first script, then another script sequentially, one by one, but it will parse them all as together, as one. So it's not like one script is another window, another script is another window. No, they are going to be executed sequentially from top to bottom approach. That's what will happen. But you need to understand one of the very important point. Ultimately, all of the script is going to be parsed as one. So even though when I write console.log a, it knows over here what a is because window is same for everyone because all of the secrets are combined, merged, passed into one. Am I clear? Am I clear? Now, one day I was giving one of the interviews and someone told me, okay, you have created a variable in var a is equals to 10 and you have defined one other script where you are accessing this a. Now, how will I make sure that the same variable will not be accessed in another script? This was the interview question, and I was not able to answer at that point of time, honestly. So, what is the answer to this? So, it is part of Windows, so it is global and can be accessed in multiple. It can be accessed in multiple scripts. Yes, because all of the secrets will be executed one by one, but they will be passed as one at end. All of them is one. Now, my question is that there are multiple scripts. So over there, I have defined var a, I am accessing it another. So how can I actually make sure that when I say console.log a, it should not be able to access another script's declarations and all those things? How can I make sure that? How can I make sure that? There's one other type of scope that we usually not talk about in our JavaScript, which is called module. So I can simply implement type module here if I remember correctly. So if I write type module, it means whatever I will do inside this script, it will die within this script. So there is one of the very important attributes that you can pass to your script called as type module. So now it means, and if I right now go to the output, if I remove this, let me refresh my page. If I go to console, you can clearly see it says A is not defined. A is not defined. Since A is not defined, it automatically means now this A actually died over here. Do you understand that? What type module means? Whatever you define here, it dies over here. So that's what we mean by module scope. I am pretty much sure you might be hearing this first time. So this is type module. It means whatever you define inside this script, you cannot access it in another script. So if you want to make it private, that this script is dealing with different set of instructions. In that case, type module, and you have your work done. I hope that is completely understood. Am I clear? Sir, is public private protect? No, 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 no. We simply have type module. It will make this as one module, another as another module if I implement type module. In that case, if you want to access this in any other file, you have to import export, which we will see later on. Okay. Of course, in a similar way, like you are writing this code, Said, like this. Create another file over there and then write src here. It will work one of the in one of the same things. I don't think there's any difference in that. Logic same everywhere. You just have to define this code in another file, create src and define it there. Okay. I hope this makes sense. Let me remove the type module over there. Please make sure you actually note down what type module is. I'm not going to use it here because I made you understand what type module means. So now another question over here is, can I access my X here? So if I simply try to access X here, can I access it? X is defined into function. Add, can I access X? No. Because when I try to access my X, it means it will try to find this X inside the window object because I am writing it directly inside the global space. But variable X is defined in a functional. So functional scope means, local scope means that whenever you define a function inside the curly braces, between this, whatever you define, it will die there. That's what scope means. Like I have defined a X, where can I access it? Where will it die? Until what time I can access it? That's the definition of scope. So if you are defining any kind of variable in a function, you cannot access it outside a function. So until now, we have done a very huge discussion on variables that are defined with a keyword called as var. Even when we talked about execution contexts, when we talk about globals and all those things, over there we also discussed one same thing with respect to the var keyword. But what will happen if I define the variable let? Let's suppose I will simply remove this code, although let me try to comment this code. Okay. So let me try to not comment this code. Actually, I will remove this because I think we can discuss it back later on. And let me remove this as well. I don't need function. I want to understand what let keyword is. I will talk about. I will give you a conclusion over there inside our. Once we complete the discussion, I will do that. Now the variable that I've defined is with var, but I will define one another variable with b. Let b is equals to, and let's suppose b is equals to 20. And then if I try to go and write console.log b, you can clearly see if I go and check in the console, it will give me the output, right? So if I go over there, check, it will give me 20. But that's not what I'm here for. We know one of the very important things, and answer me in the chat. Whenever we define a variable with a var keyword, the variable gets stored in an object called as global window object, right? But now if I simply go here and put a breakpoint on line number let b, and if I try to refresh my page, you can clearly see now there is one another type of object that is defined, which is script actually. What does script mean? Okay, what does script mean? Now there are a lot of wrong definitions that people give related to script, a lot of wrong definitions. Okay, we will understand what script means in a second. As of now, I want to print console.log window. I don't want to print b, I want to print my window. I want to see whether this b will be part of window or not. So I will simply go here and I will try to, let me remove the breakpoint and let me refresh my page. And if I will go to console, open my window, as a part of b, I don't see any key with the value b. So it means when we talk about let, it is not stored in window object. That is the first conclusion. Whenever we define a variable with let keyword, the variables are not stored with inside my window object. That is the first conclusion. Now, if it is not stored in the window, what will happen if I try to access my B inside another script? I will give you 2 minutes. Think about it and let me know. This is why people give you wrong information. If I access console.log B and I have showed you in the console, this B got stored under a mysterious name called as script. What do you think will be the output of this code? Will I be able to access B here? Aman says undefined node of interrogation. Anyone else? I need some answers. What do you think? What will be the output of this code if I execute it? Quickly, take your time and let me know. Other says yes. Divyandu Pradnya says no, 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 20. Shubham, anyone else? If you check the output, you can clearly see it gives me 20. It gives me 20. Sir, what's happening? Like, if you ask me, when I was learning script scope in someday before, lot of years back, I was told that script scope means whenever you define a variable in a script, it will die within that script. Then what's the difference between type module and script? There's no difference in that case. That's what I was told, and that's what I learned as well, honestly. And this is the answer I used to give in the interviews as well. That when we define a let with a, or when we define a variable with let, it is having a script scope, and then it simply goes and dies within that script. That's not what happens. Whenever you define, first of all, let's understand this script scope, this script. There are 2 points that you need to understand. One is called a global scope, another one is called a global declaration. 2 things. One is called a global scope, another one is called a global declaration. Even though when I try to put a breakpoint here, you can see script scope. B is in script scope. But don't you think this script is part of global declaration? Yes or no? Don't you think this script is part of global declaration? Because I am declaring this identifier inside the global space. Yes or no? Even though I am seeing script, but it is not like it will die within the script. That's not what it means. The variable that I'm defining over there, the scope is different, but still this script is part of global declaration. So if it is part of global declaration, I can access it anywhere. Simple. If it is let, even if it is constant, let and constant behaves in the same way, it is going to be accessed anywhere inside my program. So it is not concise to the script that I am using it. Then what is the scope of let and constant? Let and constant has block scoped. This is what block scope actually means. That if I define a block and if I write over there, let y is equals to 90. Can I access this y outside of this block? I cannot. So when we try to define our let inside a block, it dies within the block. It cannot be accessed in the block. But if you define the same variable in the global space, it behaves as global declaration. It can be accessed anywhere. So that's why I told you that don't say where is global, don't say let is block, don't say constant is block. Even though they are half correct, they are 60 to 70% correct, but it also depends on where we declare our variables. It's not like a universal statement, right? The answer lies in where we declare our variables. So if I now go over here in the output, you can clearly see as soon as I refresh my page, it will throw an error. Why? Because y is not defined. So as soon as you define a block over there, your variable will die within the block. And these variables were given later on in our ECMAScript 6 version of JavaScript. I hope this makes sense as well. I hope you have understood that scope depends on where we declare them. So script means it is part of the script, but since script is itself a part of what we call as global declaration, that's why it will be accessed anywhere. Though is my B part of window? If I try to say window.b, Is this correct? Is this correct, guys? What do you think? Can I write window dot b? No, I cannot, because b is not part of window. The variables that we define with let and const, they are part of script. They are not part of window. But scripts are part of global declaration. So window.b will throw an error, but b will actually be properly an identifier there. So it will say undefined, because inside window there is no b. It is undefined. I hope this also makes sense. That you define a variable, it does not become part of the window. In a similar way, if I go change it by constant, it will behave in a similar way. It will also have a block scope. Simple as that. Okay. Let's try to conclude all of the things that we have discussed until now. Okay. To remove the confusion that we have. First of all, the most important thing, note down these points. Variables scope depends on where you declare them. Variable scope depends on where you declare them. Number one point. Second point is, if you define a variable anywhere, its scope will be sent to its nearest parent function. Okay, so if you define any variable or any function with a var, its scope will be sent to its nearest parent function. And if there is no parent function, in that case it will simply be sent and stored inside window object. Is this clear? Do we have any confusion until now? Yes or no? Do we have any confusion until now? Right, Govind? At least I think with respect to var, it should be clear. Right? Am I clear? Third thing that we need to understand is, when we define our variables with let and constant, if they are defined inside a block, if they are declared inside a block, they will die inside the block. That is why they will die inside the block. So if they are declared in a block, they will die within the block. That's why we say these two identifiers have block scoped. Are block scoped. I hope this makes sense. After that, third thing over there, whether we talk about var, whether we talk about let, whether we talk about constant, when they are defined inside a function, all of them will have functional scope. Let's try to prove that whether they have or not, because we have to prove everything. Okay, so if I go here, let me define a function. So we have function name is anything, let's suppose add, and over here I will simply say var c is equals to this. I will simply go right, let d is equals to 44, and let my constant e is equals to, let's say e is equals to 33. Done. Let's try to understand what will be the scope of these variables. Maybe functional, I'm not sure, maybe not, right? It depends, right? Because let and constant behaves in a different way. So let's go here and let's try to open sources, and let me try to put my breakpoint here, and let's refresh my page. So if I refresh my page, you can clearly see C, D, E, they are part of function. So even when we talk about let, when we talk about constant, when we talk about our, what is this called, var, if they are defined inside a function, they will have function scope. The point is, when we declare them in a global space, var goes to window, let and constant goes to script, and you can access them across scripts, multiple scripts. This is whole scope. This is the whole conclusion. I hope we have completely understood scope in a proper way. So there is global scope, there is local scope. Local scope is also called function scope, and there is block scope. Only three types of scope. Only three. And yes, we have module scope. That's something different, that we want to make this script private. We have understood type module as well. And even let me write that. So when we write type module, it automatically means that it will be private to that script now, to that script. So please note these points. Right? Am I clear? Yes or no? Am I clear? Live sessions will be only on YouTube, Govind. Am I clear? We will have doubt sessions. We will have properly doubt. Tomorrow will be our doubt session from 8 to 9. Am I clear, guys? Do we understand what scope means entirely? Yes or no? Do we completely understand? I need a quick confirmation in the chat before I move forward. Everyone must apply. Everyone must apply. All the 33 students, 34 students. Today, my honestly, my expectation were कि आज छुट्टी है, so maybe I will see 80 to 90 students in the class. But unfortunately, I cannot see such number. I can see only 34 students, and I can understand that these 34 students are continuously active. Continuously active. So I have 34 students in the batch, not 400 students. Function scope is also called local scope. Sir, can we access global degree like no? First of all, you need to understand one thing. Is there anything that we call as window.script? So if I simply write console.log, let me simply go write console.log. And if I simply write window over there and click enter, it is an entity. But if I write window.script, is it an entity? No, it's not an entity. There's no key value pair as script. So when we say script, it means JavaScript script. Script. It means that script in which you are writing your code. It's not part of window. Sir, like, can we access global integration like secret.b as we have access window? No, we can. Okay, let's do that as well. So if I write console.log, I will simply write script. Okay, like this. Will I be able to access script over there? No, there's no script keyword. As I said, script is not any entity, it is a space. The space that we have defined in a global declaration. So script itself is not any object, but window is. So if a variable is not having near scope, then it goes into if a variable does not have any parent function, then in that case it will go to window object. Exactly. Yes. Okay. I hope this makes sense. That brings me to one another very important topic related to interviews. Now, see, today's scope that we have defined, if you ask me, I could have completed in 5 minutes explaining what global scope is, local scope is, functional scope is. But I gave you a essence of multiple scripts. I gave you a sense of what type module is. So there is a possibility that there might be confusion because we understood a lot of things. Make sure to take notes, write down points. We have our WhatsApp group, like these 34 students, 35 students, you are very much serious. Engage your WhatsApp group, doubt session group, engage there and ask doubts. Put your doubts. I know I don't reply that much there to doubts because I want you guys to answer there. But engage, ask every day 4 and 5 doubts at least. Okay. That brings me to one another very important topic of our web application, sorry, JavaScript, called as closures. So let me create a file over there with the name of closures.html. And note one point. Closures is that concept that might be asked in your interviews in 90% time. 90% time. They will ask you to explain what closures are and show me a closure that you create in your web application. And there's one another very important topic over there, which is lexical environment, lexical scope. So there are two questions that might arise from this discussion that we might do now, which is closures. So let me create a simple web document here. And over here, I will simply create H1 that will simply have some text called as closures. After that, let me go here, create a script file. Inside this script, I will simply define functions. Always remember, closures are with respect to functions. That too, nested functions. So let me define function add like this, like this, like this. In which I will define function what? Function multiply. Let's put something like this. Although the better names will be outer and inner. Outer and inner. Now, when I simply go here and I simply try to access any identifier here, any variable. So let me write console.log. I will simply write A. Now, when I am going to write console.log A, how is it going to find this A? That's what closures are actually about. So when we write console.log A inside the inner function, which means inside the nested function, this is how it will think. It will first of all try to find this A inside its local scope. If it is not, it will try to find it inside its parent scope, which is in its parent function. If it is not there, it will try to find it in its grained parent function. And wherever in any of its parent functions it finds the variable, we say the inner function has created closure with respect to that outer function. For example, this is what actually I mean. As of now, if I simply go right, console dot, sorry, not console dot log, I will define a variable where a is equals to 90. Now, if I simply try to call my inner here, so let me simply go call my inner here, and then if I simply go call my outer here, you can clearly see it's going to print an output called as a 90. So if I refresh my page, let me remove this and open my closures here. You can clearly see as soon as I go to inspect, it actually will give me 90 in the output. But that's not what I'm here for, because it's very simple. But if I go to my sources, if I put my breakpoint on line number 14, which means inside this function, and if I refresh my page, you can clearly see there is one another entity that actually is visible in front of you called as closure. Closure. Loops are local scope. Loops are nothing. It's not about loops. Scope can be a function or any variable. Loops does not have anything, right? If you define anything inside that function, it becomes a block. So inside that block, what can you access? Loops on its own does not have anything. But what can you access? That has a scope. What can we access in our programming, guys? Can we access loops? Do we define loops at one place and access them anywhere? No. We define variables, functions at one place, and then we access them in another place. So that's where scope comes into picture. But inside loops, if you ask me, inside loops, you can simply understand it's a block. You open a curly brace, you close a curly brace. It's a block. So over the block scope will come into picture. So now see, when I have put my breakpoint inside line number 40, which means inside inner function, it completely says that this line of code has created a closure with respect to what? With respect to outer function. And what is the variable it's trying to access? The variable a. So it has created a closure with the outer function through a variable a. Now, what does this actually mean? Let's try to understand it over here. Always see, this is what closures mean. If anyone asks you, usually the definition that we actually give is that closures is accessing the lexical environment of its parent. That's the definition, and 100% correct definition. But let me give you a small essence of it. And I have a question. Over here we have anonymous thread, right? In the call stack, this is the call stack that I have. Now, I asked you yesterday what is call stack. A lot of people gave me good definitions, but a lot of people also gave me ambiguous definition. The first and the most important thing is that it's a stack of something. So stack keyword was not used in your definitions. Stack keyword. So always remember stack. You have to define. If you're defining call stack, you must write it's a stack of something, which means it will follow LIFO principle, last in, first out. So talk about stack in your definitions. Okay, leave that as of now. So we have anonymous. Then we have, let's suppose, a function. Then we have over there b function. Then we have over there c function. Now you guys tell me, when is this call stack possible? I'm coming to that, Anil, what lexical means. Now, if I have a call stack like this, when is this possible? That's what my question is. Take 1 minute of time and let me know. If I have a call stack like this is, and my control is over here, by the way. Govin says nested function. Anyone else? When is this possible? It is possible under one condition only. If C is the nested function inside B is inside A is inside my global anonymous thread, right? So it means it is going to be something like this: function A, then we will have B, then we will have C, like this. This is possible. If this is the way of coding, then automatically this call stack is a possibility. Now, let's suppose inside this I am trying to access any variable. So I have written console.log a, or I am simply writing a plus b, which means I am trying to access a and I am trying to access b. Now, whenever I am inside this function over here and I am trying to access any identifier, the first thing we know, this function will have its own memory, and that is local scope to the C. Very good. Then this B will have its own memory, that is local scope with respect to this B. Then this A will have its own memory, that will be local scope to this A. Now, when it tries to access A, it will try to first of all find this A over there inside this memory. And if it finds there, simply it found it in its local scope. But if it is not there, then it will go from here to here in its parent scope. Now, whenever any nested function, inner function goes into the parent scope, we say it goes to the lexical scope. Lexically, it goes to the parent scope, and this scope is called a lexical scope, lexical environment. So over here, this inner function is trying to access its lexical environment, the parent environment. This is what we mean by lexical environment. Someone asked me that question. What is lexical over there? So with respect to the C, if it is not able to find A here, then it will try to go its lexical environment, which means in any of its parent scope. If it found it here, we say that the C function has created a closure with respect to B over there through a variable called as A. This is what we mean by closure. Closure means when inner function accesses its lexical environment through a variable. And if that happens, we say inner functions create a closure with respect to that outer function. Let's suppose if it is, while finding this A, let's suppose A is not here. Then it will try to find the A over here, which means it went again lexically to A environment. And if it found A inside the A function, we say that the C function has created the closure with A function through a variable called as A. So whenever inner function accesses its lexical scope through a variable or through an identifier, we say inner function has created a closure with outer function. Simple. Simple. Let me repeat. Let me repeat quickly. Whenever any inner function accesses its lexical environment. What is lexical environment? Parent environment, parent function scope, or grandparent scope, or so on and so forth until that function is. Lexical means parent. Lexically, I am lexically connected to my parent. Lexical, that's what lexical means. Parent scope, grandparent scope, so on and so forth. Right? I hope now lexical meaning is clear. So whenever any inner function accesses its parent scope or grandparent scope, wherever it stops, it accesses the variable. We say it has created a closure with that function. We say it has accessed its scope, that function scope where this variable was found. So it created closure. For example, if you see over here inside the code that I have written, when we try to write console.log A, is A inside the local environment of inner? Is A inside local environment of inner? No, it's not. So in this case, we simply say it is not inside its local scope. But then it will go to parent. It will not stop there, but it will go lexically to its parent. So it will go to parent scope and it finds it there. So it means inner scope has created a connection with the outer scope, with the functions, outer function there. So we say inner function has created a closure with respect to outer function through a variable called as A. That's what closures mean. Let's try to understand it over here with another example. Let's suppose inside this inner function, I have another function called as child over there. And inside this child, I will simply try to access my variable A. Now, when I am trying to access variable A, where will it try to find it this A? It will try to find the variable A inside the local scope of child, and it's not there. So will it throw an error? No, it will go to lexical scope. It will go to parent scope. It will go to inner scope. It will try to find the variable in inner scope. It's not there. Then in that case, it will go to the lexical scope of inner, which means it will go to the outer. And if it is able to find it inside the local scope of outer, we say inner function, this child function, sorry, creates a closure with respect to outer. So if I clearly go to the output, if I refresh my page, let me refresh my page, put a breakpoint inside this, refresh my page, you can clearly see it has created a closure with respect to outer. So this function child is having a closure with respect to outer function using a variable A. If I now go back, instead of define this variable over here, I will control X and let me put it here inside inner function. So now when I call it, when I call my child function, let me call my child function here. And if I call my child function, it will try to access this variable A inside the local scope of child. It's not there. It will go to the lexical environment of inner. And if it found there, it means child has created a closure with respect to inner. And if I go there and simply put my breakpoint here, right? Although let me refresh the page. So if I refresh my page, let me put my breakpoint here instead of this. So let me put a breakpoint here, and if I refresh my page, you can clearly see now the closure is not with respect to outer, but with respect to inner, because it's accessing the lexical environment of inner. So this is the concept of closure. So closure means simply whenever any inner function accesses the lexical environment of outer function. With whatever outer function it accesses its lexical environment, it creates a closure with respect to that through that variable. It creates a connection. The connection is called the connection of that function to its any parent scope is called a closure. Now, will the closure happen to the global environment? Like if I define my variable, in this case, let's suppose this variable is not defined here. This variable is defined here inside the global scope, inside the global declaration. What will be the output of this code, by the way, first of all? Outer function is not called a lexical scope. Let me repeat that. So over here, when we say var a is equals to 90, what will be the output of this code? So it will be 90, right? It will be 90. So if I refresh my page over here, let me refresh my page. You can clearly see output is 90. But in this case, if I go put my breakpoint here, does it create any closure here? Does it create any closure? No, it does not. So functions, when inner function access outer function scope, in that case, closure is created. It's a very important concept inside our JavaScript, with help of which we can actually access our parent domain. Now, real life example, you need to understand every single time that whenever we talk about web application, nested functions can play a very important role. And we will, of course, when we create our web applications, we will see nested functions very much implemented. We will see function, nested function, so on and so forth. If your application does not have any requirement of nested functions, in that case, we don't need concept of closure. But when we talk about nested functions, accessing the parent scope becomes very important, right? It becomes very important. And if you do not have an ability of accessing the parent scope, how can you actually create nested functions? You cannot. In that case, you need to make sure all the variables are defined inside that function local scope only. So you have to be extra careful. That's why closures come into picture. So closures meaning accessing lexical scope. So can I conclude one point here, guys, that closures will only happen when there are nested functions? Can I conclude that statement? Closures can happen only when there are nested functions. Accessing any parent function scope is called a lexical scope. Whether it is first parent, grandparent, 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 it goes through child to parent lexically, parent to grandparent lexically, grandparent to grandparent lexically. That's what lexical environment means. Same thing, lexical scope. Scope means space, environment means space. It's same thing, right? I hope this makes sense. I hope we are completely clear with what closures are. With this, we have completed our topic called as JavaScript under the hood. Yes, there is one another discussion that we will be doing later on, part 4 of JavaScript under the hood, when we will understand asynchronous JavaScript. But now our focus will be completely on our arrays, and we will try to understand what arrays are, what objects are, then we will start what DOM is, and then we will come back and understand JavaScript under the hood part 4. But only this is possible only when I see people joining. Sir, please explain surprise. What does surprise mean? Separate operator that will be discussed once arrays and objects are completed. Done. Perfect. Let's go here and let's now start our arrays. But before that, let me give you a quick conclusion. JavaScript under the hood, we discussed lot of things. Number one was global execution context, in which we discussed memory and code. Then we discussed function execution context, which means whenever any function is invoked, function execution context will be created. Then we discussed over there what hoisting is. Right? We discussed different parts of functions, different types of functions. Different types of functions. Then we understood over this scope variable and function scope. Done. Then we finally understood what closures are. So make sure you create proper notes of all of these things and then move forward to arrays. Yes, please, Anil. If you have any request, feel free to put that in the chat. Okay. Sir, can you please provide us some theory part of your own? I think theory part. When you say theory part, do you mean notes, Anil? Now let's start one of the very important topics inside our JavaScript, which is called arrays. I told you in one of the classes that if you want to become a very good JavaScript or web developer, there are two things that you should hold. Three things actually, but two things are most important. Number one is functions, which we have understood at least. Do we have any questions in functions? I think function types, functions, function execution context, closures, hoisting, and all those things related functions we have properly discussed. And second thing is we have arrays. We will see. I will see whether I will be able to create some notes for all of you and I will share them. Okay, hopefully if possible. Now we will have to understand the second most important topics related to our JavaScript called as arrays. Now until now, whatever variables we defined, they were defined like this: var a is equals to 10, var b is equals to 20, var c is equals to 30. And let's suppose all of these three define nothing but marks for me, which means they all define and represent same type of entity for at least for same kind of user. Marks of adfer, marks of adfer, marks of adfer. And let's suppose there are seven subjects. Do I define seven different variables? And even I can define the variables, but the accessing part of such entity is very difficult, which means that if I want to represent these three variables, A might be defined here, B might be defined here, and C might be defined here. So when we define our variables differently, automatically in our memory, they will have the memory location accessing different places. So I have to access this separately, I have to access this separately, I have to access this separately. So they are not in a contiguous memory location, although my intention was to create that, because A represents marks, B represent marks, C represent marks. So if all of them represent marks, I would want them to be in a contiguous memory location at one place inside my memory, so that I can actually access this entity in an easier way, and I can manipulate it in an easier way. I can update it in an easier way. I can access it in an easier way. At least my computer should not do too much hard work here. That's why our arrays comes into picture. Arrays are that type of data type. First of all, if you remember, we discussed two types of data types: primitive and non-primitive. In non-primitive, the first data type that we are discussing is arrays. So arrays are nothing but actually a data structure in which we store collection of data items. But it's not actually just about collection of data items stored in a single entity, in a single variable, but it's also about storing the same collection of data items in a contiguous memory location. Contiguous memory location, which means if my memory is like this, I will define variable. Let's suppose my array is going to store 5 marks. Let's suppose 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. These are the 5 marks for my 5 subjects. So if I store it in an array data structure inside my memory, these 5 entities will not be stored in different memory locations, but they will be stored in a single memory location, but in a contiguous. So this will have a contiguous memory allocation inside my memory. So if it is a contiguous memory allocation, it means now it becomes very easier for me to access this memory type, access this data type. It becomes very important and very easy for me to manipulate, update such kind of data types inside my JavaScript. So arrays, let me conclude the definition of arrays: collection of data items stored at one location in a contiguous memory locations, instead of storing them in a different five different locations, and we do not want that. And since they all represent marks, so I will store them in a variable called as marks array, maybe something like this, right? The point that you might have heard in different programming languages, that arrays are a collection of data items that store same type of data. Have you heard that statement? collection is that type of data structure where you can store collection of data items, but in a but same type of data. Which means if I define my array like this, if I define my array, so array can have only one type of data: 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Which means if this is an array, all of them has to be integers. Absolutely correct in C++, Java. If I define an array with characters, maybe with names, then this is going to be adfar, this is going to be hello, this is going to be bello, this is going to be tello, but all of them are strings. So that's absolutely correct. But in other programming language, the first and the most important point that you need to remember related to arrays in JavaScript is it is dynamic typed. Dynamic typed means that we can store different types of data in a same array. The same array that I will create here, it can have number here, it can have 10.5 here, float number, it can have a string as well, it can have boolean as well, it can have null as well, and this is a valid array inside our JavaScript. So in my JavaScript, we don't say that array is a collection of data items of same data type. No, array is a data structure that is collection of items in a contiguous memory location, and it can contain different types of data as well. So that is allowed in my JavaScript. I hope that makes sense. Now the syntax, now the implementation, and all those things we will implement and understand in this class, but after the break. Now spiritual mind asked a question, but how can we store dynamic type array in Java, how it works in Java? Then why we will see, the memory implementation of this after the break. We'll try to understand how it actually works. See, first of all, let me answer this shortly, okay? Then we will see after the break. You need to understand that JavaScript is a programming language that deals with web applications, right? And web application demands different types of data. It is not like in C does not demand different types of data, but web applications demand. Let me give you an example. Let's suppose I want to create a collection of items that represent you, spiritual mind, that represents you. So if it represents you, which means you can have a name, you can have an age, you can have some conditions as well. Are you 18 years old? Yes, no. So when it represents you, collection of data items, it represents you, and you are defined properly in a web application. Like you go to profile section, you see skills, you see ratings of you see age, you see dob, you see different things. It's about understanding why we need it in a web application, collection of items. And let's suppose it represents a particular user inside web application. Now user can have different types of data. That's why we need dynamic typed data. So that's why it has to be dynamic typed. Now if you ask about memory, memory is very simple. Like for example, if it takes, let's suppose the first item inside memory takes 1000, the address of this is 1000. So if it takes 2 bytes, so it will be 1000 plus 2, this will be 1002. If it takes 4 bytes, it will be 1006. If it takes 1 byte, it will be 1007. If it is 1 byte, it will be 1008. So memory allocation works in a similar way how it works in the different programming language. But the point is, it was created dynamic typed because there's a need of it in our web application. It has to contain different types of data because we are representing arrays. We are using arrays in our object in our web application, and web application demands dynamic typed. Web application does not demand static typed. Web application demands different types. I hope that makes sense. Am I clear? Am I clear? Spiritual mind, I hope that answers your question in some way. So we will take a break of 10 minutes exactly at 11, whatever 10 minutes we have, then we will start our class. Okay, 11:14, I guess. So let me start 10 minutes timer quickly, and then we can start our class. Okay. See you guys after 10 minutes. Do not leave the class, stay here. And one very important point, after this, we are going to discuss very important methods, very important things related to arrays. Arrays is not how we define it in other programming languages. Remember that. So it's somehow very different here. It's somehow very important here. Why it's important, we will understand it after some time. So please make sure you stay in the class. Even in the break, stay here. Don't leave the class. Stay here. Okay, na? See you guys after 9 minutes 47 seconds. Bye. Hey guys, hi everyone, welcome back. I hope I'm audible. Am I? Hello guys, hi everyone. Give me a second. Let me put a message. Okay. So with respect to as of now, if you remember that we have completed the functions part, we have completed the closures. Although this closures word over there has reminded me that in one of the interviews I was asked one of the questions related to closures. Okay, and at that point of time I did struggle with that question, but I was able to answer eventually because I had a little bit understanding of closures at that point of time. So let me share that question with all of you before we move forward with arrays. But I want to see first of all where rest of the students are, because I can see only 33 here. And please make sure that you like this video right now, and you please subscribe this channel if you have not already. Okay, so please do that. Let's talk about that interview question before I move forward over here with respect to arrays. And that might give you a real essence of what closures are, why we need closures sometimes as well. Let's suppose I have a function. Okay, let me remove this, although let's not remove it. Let me try to comment this code. So allow me a second. So let me try to comment this code like this, like this. Let's suppose I have a function. Okay, and with that function, inside that I want to create a closure. Now you, according to the definition that we have understood of closures, I know I started arrays, but I reminded myself what was the interview question. This is the interview question that I come across, and please try to understand what this question is about. So let's suppose I have a function called as outer, and inside this function I will define a simple variable. Let's suppose let my count over there is equals to 0. Done. A variable count is equals to 0. After that, I will simply tell it to return. Now, return what? Return another function. Now, what is this function supposed to do? It's simply supposed to maybe increment this count. Let's suppose count plus plus, and then finally it's supposed to console.log count over here. Simple. So I have an outer function, then I have an inner function. The function that is returning itself, and in this case, I'm simply writing count plus plus, and I'm consoling my count. Now let's suppose I will create a variable over the let my counter, let's suppose, is equals to what? Is equals to, I will call my outer function like this. Very good. Tell me guys, what will be the output of this code? What will be the output of this code? If I try to call my out counter now, okay. So if I call my counter, since it's returning the another function, that's why I'm going to call my counter like this. What will be the output of this code? That's what my question is. Try to link it with closures if you can. So you will say, if I try to go to the output here, if I go to the inspect here and open my console, you can clearly see it gives me 1. Now, how does it give me 1? It gives me 1 over there because this function is going to access its lexical environment, outer function, and it's going to put 1 over there. Very good. Now, if I go here and call my counter again, now this is a different execution. I am calling this function again. Now, in this case, tell me what will be the output. I'm giving the real implementation of closures. Why 2? How 2? How is it going to be 2? Function execution is done. When we call our first function, its execution is done, its local scope is moved. How is it 2? I can see other people are writing 1. Govind, I'm not saying your answer is wrong. Pratimesh, your answer is wrong. But I'm saying how to. Because we are not changing outer function. Function is being invoked by counter na. And if I call my counter again like this, what will be the output? So will it be 1, 1, 1 or 1, 2, 3? What is the output here? Because we are not calling out, we are calling outer function. We are invoking outer function again and again. Why I have created in a variable? Because it is returning a function. That's why I put it in a counter so that it can execute this function also as well. I understand your point of view as well. What you are trying to say, Govin. You are saying simply that basically, sir, function invocation is same, but I'm calling it again and again still. So if I go over here in the output, you can clearly see, although why do I have breakpoint? Let me remove this. If I go, it says 1, 2, 3. It says 1, 2, 3. Now, why does it say 1, 2, 3? Because when we go over the resources and when I simply put, let's suppose, breakpoint here or anywhere, and if I refresh my page, you can clearly see it has create a closure with the outer. It has created a closure with the outer. So we can actually understand one of the very simple and very easiest points over here, which is even though the outer has finished execution, don't you think when we created our variable over here, it has finished execution? Even though outer has finished its execution, the inner function that I'm trying to return over there has access to the count variable because of the closure. So the value of count persists between multiple function call. This is what closures are. So we have created a counter. So between multiple function calls, we have kind of created a private variable, a closure over there to the inner function with respect to outer function. And that's what we have. That's what this was the interview question. Even though honestly speaking, it was around 2020, something like that. I answered first of all 111. I was like, no, sir, 111. The answer is 111. The interviewer was like, no, let me give you some time. You answered other questions, but let me give you some time. Take 1 minute time and answer me. Once I put a real thought in it, then I was able to answer it's 1, 2, 3, actually, not 111. So always, whenever anyone asks you a question, don't go with your intuition immediately. Always take time and then answer. I hope this interview question is also understood. Please note it down and try to write always your interview questions in your copy. If you're enjoying this session, please make sure that you like this video right now and you share it with your friends. Let me come back to the array discussion that we are actually discussing one more time. If you look at this, Ankit, when we say count plus plus, I am trying to access count. But is this count defined inside this function or outer? It means this count is going to create a closure with respect to the outer function. So basically, it means once it creates a closure, we have defined kind of a memory for the inner function. We have defined kind of a private variable for the inner function. So even though my function has completed its execution, but since it's a closure, it is closed with it. It create a connection with it. So count is part. It became part of the inner function because of that closure. That's why it gives me 1, 2, 3, not 1, 1, 1 over there. I hope that makes sense. Okay. With this, let me close the discussion on closures and let's go and let's start our arrays. I told you what arrays are for. So whenever we define our array, we define our array with any keyword. It's a variable in front of which we always use square brackets as the identifier, as the syntax symbols for arrays, in which we can simply store our item 1, our item 2, and our item 3, so on and so forth. Now, you guys tell me one thing here, which is very important. Few seconds back, I told you as well. Will these item 1, item 2, item 3 always be of same data type, or they can be of different data type in JavaScript? Especially in JavaScript, will they all be of same data type or different data type? They will be very good of different data type. They are dynamic type. I hope that is completely understood. Let's create a simple basic array here. So let me go here and let me define a file with arrays.js. I will define an array over the arr is equals to array of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. And if I try to console my arr, you can clearly see as soon as I execute it, it gives me array in the output. If I try to see the type of this particular variable, if I go right type of what type of my arr, and if I try to execute this, you can clearly see it is an object, not array, although it's an array. But everything in JavaScript is an object. We will prove that later on in one of the classes. No, I have not pushed the code to the GitHub. There's a reason behind that, because I don't want to push it to the GitHub. I want you to practice on your own, look at the video again, understand again, and so on and so forth. I don't want to give you code pre-created. Do that on your own. Okay, it's an object, right? But everything in JavaScript is an object. We will understand that later on, right? I hope that makes sense. Now tell me one thing. I have defined different items here inside my array. How can I access single entity? You might have heard, and I'm pretty much sure most of you already know, to access any array item, we use indexing. First element's index is 0, second element's index is 1, so on and so forth. But I received one of the interview questions lately in one of the interviews. Honestly, I'm giving you from this all questions from my experience. The question was, why does indexing start from 0? Why not from 1? As of now, if you go, if I try to say, instead of, let me remove this, I will say ARR at index 0. This is how we access our items individually. We write ARR square brackets, the index number. This will have index number 0, this will have index number 1, this will have index number 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I go and try to execute this, you can clearly see it prints me 2. If I write index at index 3, so there is 5 which is at index 3. So if I execute, you can clearly see it gives me 5. But someone asked me, why does indexing start from 0? Why not it starts from 1? Because 1 will be very easy for me. Like I will say, this is my first element, second element, third element, fourth element. Why do I say this is my 0th element, first element, second element, third element, fourth element, fifth element? Because you need to understand one of the very important points here, which is how this array will be stored in our memory. Let's suppose this is the array that I have defined, where ARR is equals to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's suppose this is the array that I have. And let's suppose this is the memory that I have. Inside the memory, since I know it's going to be contiguous memory location, so this is how it will be stored in memory. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right? Now you need to understand one very important point. Even though they are in the contiguous memory location, it will have an address. And we always get the base address. Base address means the first element that we have, the address of that element is called a base address. Let's suppose the address of this element is 1000. Okay, so A is equals to 1000. And let's suppose every element over there takes 2 bytes of memory. Okay, I'm not saying it takes 2 bytes, I'm saying let's suppose. So if this is at 1000 location, where will this 5 be? Where will this 6 be? So this 5 will be at 1000 plus 2, which is 1002. This will be at 1004. This will be at 1006. This will be at 1008. And this will be at 1010. That's why we say in array, if we have the address of first element, we can reach anywhere, right? So A is 1000 and N over there is 2, right? Which means every element takes 2 bytes. So can this be represented as A plus 0n? Can this be represented as A plus 1n? Can this be represented as A plus 2n? Can this be represented as A plus 3n? Can this be represented as A plus 4n? And can finally this be represented as A plus 5n? Yes or no? Can we represent the same things like this? A plus 0 and A plus 1 and A plus 2 and so on and so forth. So from this particular conclusion, you can clearly understand that my element is 0 and far from its base address. The first element that I have, it is 0 steps far away from its base address. So this index represents how much far it is actually from the base address. Since first element is on the base address, it means it's not far from the base address, it's on the 0th location of the base address. So that's why the indexing start from 0, indexing start from 1, indexing start from 2, indexing start from 3, indexing 4, indexing 5. So this index represents how far it is from the base address. Base address means address of the first element. I hope this answers your question. I hope you have understood why indexing start from 0, not from 1. I hope that makes sense. Am I clear? Am I clear? I need a quick confirmation in the chat. Give me a yes or no. Give me a yes or no. So if I go here, I can simply, you guys, according to that particular discussion, if I write ARR 5, what will be the output of this code? What will be the output of this code? We have heap memory inside this. We will understand heap memory later on. So you can clearly, let me repeat for Adil quickly. Let us suppose that first element is having some memory address there. And for my understanding, took as example there, Adil, which is A is equals to 1000. So this is at 1000 location. So can I say, and every element takes, let's suppose, 2 bytes. So this will be 1000, 1000, 2000, 4000, 6000, 8000, 10. So, but this can be also represented a plus 0n, which means 1000 plus 02, which means 1000. 1000 plus 1, 2, 1002, 1000 plus 2 into 2, 1004, 1000 plus 3 into 2, 1006, and so on and so forth. So can I say that this 0 represents its index, which means how far it's from the base address? Base address means the address of the first element. It is 0 steps from the first address, the first element. It's 1 step from the first element based on what n is. And then 2, 3, 4, 5. I hope that answers your question. So I hope you have understood what actually the indexing inside our web application is. Am I clear? Now, Govind says, can we use negative indexing? We find out by using negative. Let's see. If I say -1 over there, ARR at -1, if I execute it, it says undefined. Let me say -3. And if I try to execute it, it says undefined again. So I don't think negative indexing works in this case. It might work sometime, but okay. Whenever you say minus, it means the element is not there. So it does not work. It does not work. Negative indexing does not work. Okay. Let's go here. Okay, sir, we use one based index. We find how much far using. You can do that. You can do that. Okay. Now, see, let's move a little bit forward. Inside the same array, I can store different elements as well. I can go write something like this. What can I do? I can also store other. Is this a valid array? I can go here and store what? I can store null here. Is this a valid array? I can go over. I can store, let's suppose, true as well. Is this a valid array? Of course, it's a valid array. So we can store our elements like this as well. So if I go write element at 4, what will be the element at 4? Sorry, element at 3. What will be the element at 3? Of course, go to the indexing and see according to that index where the element is. In that case, it becomes null. So it's a valid array inside JavaScript. So do not ever think that we can store only same types of data, because web applications does not demand that. Web application demands much more than that. Moving a little bit forward, there is one another very important thing, a quick overview. Although we don't do that much in JavaScript, we have to understand one another type of array called as multi-dimensional array. Since my element, individual element, let's suppose I will go write ARR2 is equals to something like this, 1, 2, 3. And this 3, instead of 3, it can be a string as well. The same element that I have, it can be a boolean as well. The same element can be 10.2 as well, a float as well. Same element can be over there null as well, and so on, undefined as well. But what will happen if I make same element as an array? Can I do that? Of course I can do that. It's a dynamic type, but I can make any element anything. So this individual element is an array. So let's suppose I will write 1, 2, 3. Then another element will be an array. So it will be 4, 5, 6. Another element will be an array, 7, 8, 9. So is this possible? Yes, it is possible. So multi-dimensional array can be created in this case as well. So if you look at this particular array, my ARR2, the ARR2 array, how many elements it contains now, guys? Can you give me a number in the chat? How many elements it contains right now? Quickly. Very good. Very good. How many elements? So if you look at this ARR2, how many elements? You will understand this statement later on once we implement it in our real web applications, Govind. How many elements does my ARR2? My ARR2 has only 3 elements. It does not have 9. It has only 3 elements. So you can see, according to ARR2, this is the first element. This is the second element. This is the third element. So there are only 3 indexes that we have, 0, 1, 2. So ARR2 does not have 9 elements. It has only 3 elements. That's why I asked you this question, because I knew we will write 9. So if I write ARR2 at the index 2, so if I try to execute it, it will give me the whole array. So if this is the whole array, then if I have to access its individual element, of course I will write more index on it. So ARR2 square bracket 2 gives me an array. Inside that array, if I have to access any other element, I will write another index. So now ARR2 add 2. What will be the output of this code? Of course, ARR2 is this. It is 2 indexes 9. So if I try to execute this, it gives me 9. Simple as that, right? In a similar way, if I go right over there, 1, it will give me 2 comma 1, which is 8. It gives me 8. Let's suppose I want to print 3 in the output. What will be the indexing in that case? Govind, for your question, remember I told you arrays are more important than objects. You will understand that later on once we implement, once we see the data structure. Don't worry as of now. As of now, understand different things. Later on, when we will implement use actually data structures in our web application, you will see arrays is what we use most. Objects as well. Actually, we use array of objects. Okay, because arrays has a lot of methods. So of course, in order to access 3, we have to first of all element access this element which is at 0th index. So I will write 0 here, and then we have to access 2 or 3, whatever its index is, and if I execute it will access my 2 in the output. Done perfectly. Very good, very good. Now I won't, yes, there are different methods with respect to multi-dimensional array which we will see later on. I will not focus that much on multi-dimensional array because it's not that important. I will focus on our methods that can be implemented directly on arrays. In one of the classes, I gave you two things. I want to understand that from you now. I want to see how many people remember that. Remember, I told you that whenever we try to solve a problem, there are two approaches that we can do: declarative approach and imperative approach. I will give you 2 minutes of time. Tell me quickly, what do we mean by declarative approach and imperative approach? Two approaches we use: declarative and imperative. What do we mean by declarative and what do we mean by imperative? Imperative means write logic which is already declared. Declarative means what to do. Okay. And imperative means in that case, what to do means declarative. Okay. Declarative means using predefined. Very good, very good. Anyone else? Declarative means, imperative means how to do, what to do. Very good, very good, very good. How to do imperative. Okay, very good. So whenever we talk about solving a problem in programming, there can be two approaches that we can do. Very good, Kavya. Number one is we can actually write every single code on our own. Another one is we can use predefined functions. We simply let it know what to do, it will do it. And we in programming in web applications, we in most of the time is use declarative approach, not imperative approach. Imperative approaches with data structures and algorithms. Very good, Pradnya. Very good, Kavya. Ankit, I can see all of you remember it. That's very nice, and I'm really happy. Very good, very good, very good, very good, Prathamesh. So over here, let me talk about an example of declarative. For example, and there are 10-20 methods which we will learn in arrays, and the most methods, if any data structure has in JavaScript, is arrays. That's why I told you it's very important. On this array that I have defined over here, on line number 1, let me try to control X this and let me try to paste it here. On this array that I have, I want to add element at the last. Now, in order to do that, what can I do? I can actually use imperative approach. I can implement a loop around every element, and then the element which is at the last element, I will add one to that and add my element to it. That is imperative approach. But instead of that, what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to tell it arr dot push. I will use a push method. Now, when I say push method, what does it mean? It automatically knows what it has to do. So I'm simply telling it what to do, not how to do. How to do, it will take care of that. Now I am telling it what to do. This is what we mean by declarative approach. So arr dot push over there, push what? Push, let's suppose, hello at the end. And now if I try to go over here and if I try to execute my console.log, and if I try to see what my ARR became, you can clearly see as soon as I executed, now hello is at the end of that array. So it has pushed the element at the end. Now, is this declarative or imperative approach? It's declarative approach because it knows I will tell it directly push. Now it knows at what index it has to push. Do you think I am telling it please push at the last index? No. So it will automatically know that where it has to push, it will push that. And there's also one other thing. With respect to push, it's not necessary we will push only one element, we can push multiple. So I can go with I can write add, I can go there, I can write 2, 3. And if I go and try to execute this, you can clearly see it actually will push these items in the output. In the output, which means at the end. So push is a method with help of which you can push single element or multiple elements and the add of an array. Now, there's one very important interview question, not asked to me, but was asked to one of my students in the interviews. The interview question related to push method is, let's suppose I have var arr is equals to an array 1, 2, 3, 4, sorry, not dot, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I will implement push over there. Push what? Push adfer, comma, what is this called? Let's say hello. Now, if I try to console.log my ARR, what will be the output? Note these down. Always, please make sure that you note these questions. Create a book, create a copy, and note these. Trust me, you will never fail in JavaScript interviews. Trust me. Never ever, not even single time. If you take notes always of these interview questions, tell me what will be the output of this code. Don't execute in your VS Code. Whatever intuition comes in your mind, according to your logic, put it in the chat. 1, 2, 3, 4, add for hello. Anyone else? 1, 2, 3, 4, add for hello. I cannot because I do not remember what I have taught you in the classes related interview questions. That's why you have to take notes on your own, Sadi. At least if you not take notes, at least write that this is an interview question. This is an interview question. This can be asked in an interview. Kabe says this. Very good, very good. I can see few answers in the chat. 1 add for hello or 1, 2, 3 for add for hello. So I can see most of you are, most of you agree on the same answer. I can see in the chat. If I try to execute this, the output is actually 6. Output is 6. So इसे कहते हैं मैंने बॉल की और कंप्लीटली बोल्ड हो गए आप. Output is 6. Because there are two things that you need to remember. Do you know what mistake we do? Number one mistake that we actually do is we always focus on what method does. We don't focus on what it returns. This is the mistake that most of the freshers or learners actually do. When we talk about our methods, we just focus on what it do, not what it returns. Let me give a simple analogy here to make you understand this kind of thing. If I say var arr is equals to add over there, like or not arr, let me say x. If I say x is equals to add, what will be stored in x? What will be stored in x? What will be stored in x? If you are finding this new in your life, please like this lecture right now and please share it with your friends later on. If I create a line of code where x is equals to add, what will be stored in x? That's what my question is. It will not store add function there. No. It will store what add returns. Remember, when we try to return the function, whatever it returns, it stores that. So what it returns? If I say console.log ARR, what does that mean? Whatever it returns, console that. So it returns whatever it returns. In a similar way, when I try to create var arr dot push, it means whatever it will return, it will store that. Always remember, push method returns the length of the array, the updated length of the array. Push method that I have, it returns the updated length of the array. Then it put stored undefined there, Pratimesh. Because functions, if you do not return anything, it returns undefined, right? So push method, when implemented on an array, if you store in a variable, the push method itself returns updated length of that array. And when we implement such kind of thing on this array, what is the length in this case? What is the length in this case? What is the length? The length over, if you look closely, is actually 6. It will always return length. Okay, so if I go over there after this hello, let me go and let me write one something like this. Now, if I execute this, what will be the output in this case? What will be the output in this case? So if I try to execute, you can see it's 9. So always remember, whenever you create a method, always it does two things. It's not just about what it implements. That's one thing. Second thing is what it returns. And if you store it in a variable, then what it returns becomes very important. It becomes very important. So please make sure that you remember it, you understand it. So whenever we actually create a variable, we implement in front of it a function, it means whatever it's returning, give me that. And it returns the length, updated length of an array. I hope that is very clear. In a similar way, let me now try to comment this code. Okay, and let me go here and let me simply write where arr is equals, let's say array 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Although I'm not sure why I'm putting dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Done. And then over there, I will simply tell arr dot pop like this. Done. And then if I simply say console.log arr, now what does pop mean? Pop means at the last index, please remove the element. Pop means at the last element, please remove the element from an array and update the array. So if I execute, you can clearly see now 6 is popped. Now this is what the method does. Method actually simply makes sure the on which array I am going to implement, it's going to update the array and remove the element on the array. But if I now go over here and store it in a variable, let's suppose var x is equal to this arr.pop, it means what it returns. And what will be the output in this case if I try to console my x? So console.log my x. If I try to console this x, what will be the output? The output is the element it removed. So pop method actually stores the element it removes. So if I try to execute it, it removes element 6. That's why it's 6 here. So 6 is popped. That's what it's going to remove. So sometimes we might have a requirement that we want to access the last element and also remove it at the same time. So you can use pop. So it is going to remove the element. Even if I store it in a variable, it's going to update the array and then it's going to return the last element that we have. I hope this makes sense. So we have two methods. Number one is push, number one is pop. Both of them implement their operations at the end of an array. First element, push, returns the length of an array, updated length of an array that it's going to implement. Pop also returns the last element it is supposed to return. So return becomes very important. Now there's another classification of methods. Whenever you look at your methods, it can do two possibilities. Number one is it can actually update the original array or it cannot. Push and pop updates the original array. Now, some other methods we might encounter later on in our next classes, with help of which what we can do is once we implement it on an array, it does not affect the original array. It creates a new array or it creates new section thing, whatever we wanted to create. So two types of methods in that classification we have. Now, similar to push and pop, we have more two elements here. Sorry, more two methods that actually implement their operations at this first index, sorry, at the 0th index of an array. So where arr is equals to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And in this case, we have shift and shift. I will simply say arr dot shift like this. Now, what does shift do? It simply removes the first element from the array. Similar to pop, we have vice versa of it called as shift. So pop removes the last index element, shift removes the first index element. So if I simply go write console.log arr now, and if I try to execute this, you can clearly see 1 does not exist now. It is 2, 3, 4, 5. It has shifted, it has removed the first element. On the another case, if I try to store this where x is equals to this, and if I try to console my x here, so console.log my x, and if I try to execute this, you can clearly see it actually returns the first element it removed. So this is what we mean by shift. I hope you have noted that on your rough copy as well. The shift is a method with the help of which we can remove the first element from an array. Done. After that, we have another array, another element here, another method here. So let me define where ARR is equals to, and I will simply go define 1, comma 2, comma 3, comma 4, comma 5, comma 6. Now add the first index. If you want to add the element at the beginning of array, we use unshift. So ARR dot unshift. So I will use unshift over there. Now it says that if you want to insert any elements at the start of an array, we can clearly actually use unshift method. So I will simply pass over the A, comma B, comma C like this. And now if I try to console.log my ARR and then try to execute it, you can clearly see it actually adds those elements at the beginning. I hope I am completely clear. Now, in a similar way, there can be also a question. Let's suppose I will say where ARR, although leave where ARR, let's suppose I will simply go right over there where X is equal to this. Now, what will be the output of this if I try to console this? Think and let me know. If I try to console X, what will be the output of this code? So similar to my push, it also returns the new length of the array. So if I try to execute it, you can clearly see it gives me 9. So unshift and push, they both return the new updated length of an array. On the other case, pop returns the last element, shift returns the first element. So it returns size. Please make sure you understand and you remember that. Now, if I already have an array, I want to see what its length is. So we can also use a method console.log arr.length like this. So if we want to see length of an array, you can execute, you can see it gives me 9 over there because that's what the updated length is. So that's what the length is when this code is being executed. So arr.length will give you the length of an array. One another very important method. Can we push whole array in another array? Of course we can do that. But if let's suppose I have var arr2 is equals to 3, 4, 5. And let's suppose over I will simply say ARR dot push over here and then push my ARR 2 here. And then I will simply try to console.log my ARR here. And if I try to execute this on my array, you can clearly see the array got pushed, but not as elements. The array got pushed as the array itself. That's what but was for, right? Although we have a solution for it, how we can push another array inside this using separate operator, we can do that as well, right? We can do that, right? Shift effect on ordinary. Yes, you can see that it shifted. It will affect the ordinary. Push, pop, shift, unshift. They all affect the ordinary, no matter what we do. Always. Okay. I hope this is also clear that when you directly try to push another array, the array will be treated as one element. It will not be treated as three elements or how many elements it has. It will be treated as only one element. With respect to arrays, always remember these methods play a very important role. You don't have to understand that how I will actually implement a loop on it and do this, do that. You don't have to worry about that. If anyone says add elements at the last, you should know it is push method. If anyone says what is the method that you will use to actually implement and add elements in between anywhere at any index, you have to go and use a method. You don't have to write logic there. So we have declarative, at least in web development. Huh? Right nowadays in our jobs, data structures, at least basic data structures, plays a very important role. And maybe, hopefully, that is the plan that I will myself or anyone else might teach you data structures at the end of the course, but basic data structures only. We will do that. Everything that you can think of, Sumit, will be discussed. I might, if I forget anything, you let me know. I will teach that as well, but only under one condition: when I see consistent numbers joining the class, which I'm not seeing here. So I don't want to close this batch suddenly in between, honestly. Like, see, today there was a holiday, right? I could have rested, I could have taken a rest. But I was like, no. Students always say, sir, Saturday we are not available because we have to go college and this and that. But I was like, today is holiday, no college is open, jobs we have holiday as well. So let me see how many people will join. But unfortunately, I saw the same number, right? That's very hurtful with respect to me only, honestly. And I really would have appreciated if the numbers would have touched at least 70 to 80 today. क्योंकि छुट्टी थी, सारे घर में हैं. And even after that, if you are not joining, then I don't know what to do. So let's hope, let's pray, let's wish students will continuously join. Even I'm happy with 40 as well, but it should not be less than 40. I will not close this batch anytime. I will not close this batch. Only under one condition, when I see continuous number. As soon as I see 25 numbers, batch might be closed, and which I do not want. Sir, but sir, if forget, can we not search on Google in industry? What does that mean? Please, what is this called? Rephrase that. Okay, perfect. So with this for today, we are going to close our discussion. We have understood our discussion properly related to our arrays. We have understood closures, and under the hood is completed as of now. Later on, under the hood part 4 will be implemented and understood when we start asynchronous JavaScript. We have to go back and start under the hood again. We have not completely understood how JavaScript executes its code, because whatever discussion we have done until now, that's all for synchronous code, not for asynchronous code. And there are a lot of important discussions that we need to do. But sir, if we forget methods, can we? Of course you can. Of course you can. You can. But of course, I think, like, see, if you ask me, I remember all of the methods. So if I can, you have to as well, right? You have to as well. You can, of course you can. Even I have done a lot of times. I've used Google even in interviews as well, but I have asked them first that I know the method, I know everything, but can I use Google? And they have allowed me. Depends on the interviewer as well. Some interviewers do not like that, some do, some allow you. So they allow you to open Google Chrome and then search for methods, not the answers, methods. But I would definitely suggest to actually remember these all methods on your own, right? You have to be consistent. You have to understand that you are here for a job. Money is what matters. Eventually money is what's going to make you happy, your family happy. And for that, please make sure that you practice every day with consistent, with a proper discipline. And rest you can leave on me. I will give you the best content and also detailed content on every single thing related to MERN. I can complete JavaScript in 4 classes as well, only 4 classes in 8 hours, but I won't do that. Everything, almost 95% of JavaScript will be discussed in this course, but only under one condition, when you guys will join, right? And that's not what I'm saying. So make sure, bring your friends. You can bring your friends, you can add your friends in WhatsApp group if they are serious. You can refer this batch to different people, and make sure you subscribe, share this video with your friends, and also make sure that you can also what's this called, put comment after this class end. And I'm not seeing that many comments, only 5 people are adding comments. So allow me a second. Let me try to share the address link, and then we will close our discussion. So please and please, once this class is completed, after that, you make sure that you put a proper valid comment. I will do that. There will be a session on resume building. I will get a proper expert who is going to help you in portfolio building. If you're asking about resume, that will be discussed throughout the course side, right? So please fill this Google form as soon as you can. Okay, I will give you 3 minutes of time, and share your feedback in the comment section. I hope you have enjoyed today's session. You have understood. Also, all the serious students, 34 students, or that's the number that I can see, are serious. Please make sure that once this class complete, you put a valid comment there. Put a valid comment. Appreciate it if you can. That's what I need. Okay. That's the only thing that I require from you. And share it with your friends. I need subscribers, right? Trust me, whenever we take sessions, I get 5 subscribers. And if you think that's what I deserve, then it's okay. If not, then please help me grow this channel. And there are people who need this channel, right? This level of content. Like if you agree. I hope you're submitting the Google form. Attendance is the most important parameter in this batch. Most important parameter. Okay, do we have any questions, guys? And please share the feedback of today's class in the comment section. Do we have any questions? Please make sure you mark your addends. Okay, I've shared the Google link for the addends. That's very important. That's very mandatory. And if you do not, your addends will not be considered, and you will not be considered for mock interviews and this placement assistance. So please make sure that you do it. Okay. I will try my best. As of now, I don't have created any notes, but I am planning to create a note section for MERN completely. Let me see what I can do. Okay. Allow me some time. Want to discuss you some means Salah only. What does that mean? You can reach out to me on a WhatsApp if you want to discuss something personal. Always on WhatsApp. You can directly reach out to me there. Perfect. Great. Okay. Okay, guys, I think we can wind up our discussion. Thank you so much for joining. See you in the next class on Saturday, hopefully. Tomorrow, my intention is to take a doubt session from 8 to 9 or 7 to 8 in the evening. Let's see what we can do. Okay. Thank you so much, guys. Bye, everyone. Have a great day ahead. And please make sure you put a valid comment after this session is completed. A detailed comment there that might, what's this called? जो थोड़ा सा बाकियों को भी बोले कि किस तरीके से डिस्कशन सेशंस चल रहे हैं ठीक है ना थैंक यू सो मच बाय गाइस बाय एवरीवन सी यू इन द नेक्स्ट क्लास थैंक यू बाय बाय एवरीवन